Hey, what's up? This is the post Nebraska versus Michigan video that I'm doing, and there's really nothing to discuss. Michigan defeated Nebraska 56 to 10, dominated Nebraska in every statistical category. So, with this video, I'm taking a different approach since there's nothing to analyze. I'm going to have kind of an off the cuff, in depth discussion of how concerned should we be in both the short term and the long term. I'm going to go over a couple interesting comments I heard from coaches and players in interviews since the Michigan game. I'm going to share a couple stories I have in dealing with both Scott Frost and a player that played for Nebraska a few years ago to give some context to kind of what's going on here. And then I'm going to be going over a few examples of why we shouldn't be judging Scott Frost in his first year in this program. So let's get into it. Alrighty, so first of all, this is going to be kind of a casual video where I'm just going to kind of talk because I feel like that type of video is more relevant than me pulling up game tape and analyzing the Nebraska versus Michigan game. There's just really not a whole lot to go over. So I felt like a video like this would be more relevant this week and more interesting. So first off, is the sky falling for Nebraska football right now? I know a lot of people are concerned. A lot of people aren't enjoying Saturdays anymore, not having fun watching the games. So is the sky falling? And that answer is complicated. It's both yes and no. The reason that's complicated is because in the short term, I do believe the sky is falling for Nebraska. For 2018, my definition of the sky falling is not making a bowl game. I think that's the baseline for Nebraska football. Like, the floor is making a bowl game. And I don't see a bowl game for this team. So your short-term answer, if the sky is falling, is yes. I have no reason to believe in the 2018 Nebraska football team. Now, obviously, I'm still a fan, and if they prove me wrong, I'm going to be the first person to be celebrating it, and be happy that they're winning games. But based off what I'm seeing on the field, I can't like bring an unbiased opinion and have a positive outlook for this season. It's just, I have to use my eyes and go by what I see. So, I see 2 or 3 wins for this team, which isn't going to get Nebraska bowl eligible. That's kind of the outlook for this season. But long term, is the sky falling? No, absolutely not. And I'm going to give a couple examples and tell a couple stories of why I don't believe the sky is falling for the long term. But first, I want to go over a couple clips that I saw this week from interviews really quick and kind of give my response. So let's check that out. Okay, this is the first clip I wanted to go over. It is a comment made by Scott Frost in the post-game interview after the Michigan game. And in these clips, the audio isn't perfect, but that's not my fault. I just had to kind of pull these videos off, and the audio is what it is. So, but anyway, I'm going to play this and then let you know what I think it means.
Those things don't happen overnight. I think it was pretty clear we're not ready to compete against a team like that. Coach Harbaugh's done a great job. He's been here long enough to get his guys and get it installed. But we're going to keep fighting, and I know where it's going to lead.
Okay, so what Coach Frost is saying here, basically in a politically correct, subtle way, is, don't judge my team compared to Harbaugh's team yet because I haven't had the same opportunity he's had. He's like, Harbaugh's had time to get his guys and teach his guys his system, get everything in place, and here I am just thrown into the fire after the Riley era where guys were doing whatever, and now I got to clean it up. He's basically saying, give me the same opportunity Harbaugh's had, and then let's play this game and see what happens. So, but he's saying, we're going to keep fighting. I mean, we're going to keep trying. There's really no other choice. But he's kind of saying, I need the same opportunity that he had so that I can get this thing rolling in the direction I wanted. So now let's get to the next clip. Okay, this is another clip here that I have pulled from an interview since the Michigan game, and I believe this was actually during practice week, like Monday or Tuesday. But this really made my eyebrows raise. I was like, what did he say? So, I mean, listen to this. This is Trey Neal, safety for Nebraska, transfer from UCF.
Sometimes we think they're not running it my way this time. I can kind of cruise a little bit for a few seconds, then it breaks, and you're like, oh, crap.
Listen to that again. This is, I mean, if you're wondering why a team hangs 60 on you, listen to that again.
Sometimes we think they're not running it my way this time. I can kind of cruise a little bit for a few seconds, then it breaks, and you're like, oh, crap.
That is really alarming. I don't think he's necessarily talking about himself. I think he's talking about, we have some guys in this team that think they can kind of take a play off, and they aren't really buying in and going 100 miles an hour every single play. I think there's definitely some things going on in this locker room where there's guys in there that aren't going as hard as others. And this comment is really alarming. Like if he's one of the leaders of the team and he's saying this to the public, that we have guys just kind of taking it easy. Oh, they're not going to run my way this play. That's really, really bad. So that's one of the reasons why I think, a bowl game is going to be really tough for this team unless some miracle happens and they start turning things around. But now I'm going to get into the more long-term discussion of why I don't think the sky is falling. And I'm going to start with, telling a couple stories about experiences I've had with the Nebraska football program. So let's get into that part. Okay, I'm going to try not to let this video get too long, but so I'm going to try to tell these stories quick, but, I do still want to make a good video and get my points across. So bear with me here. I've lived in Lincoln for a few years now, and I'm not going to say the guy's name, but I ran into kind of a big-time recruit in a public place, and I instantly recognized him, and he's somebody who I believe was recruited under Callahan and played mostly under Callahan, maybe all years but one. And, I walked up and said, hey, what's up? You're so-and-so from such and such state. And he's like, and he kind of smiled. He's like, yeah, that's me, nice to meet you. And, it had been a few years since he played for Nebraska, but he was still in Lincoln, and I recognized him. And I could tell by how he kind of engaged me that he was being friendly and he was willing to talk. So I said, hey, like, what went wrong during the Callahan era? Like, you guys just never seemed to quite hit your ceiling despite the talent you had. Like, from your perspective, what happened? And he told me, he was like, man, our coach didn't really care about us. Our coach didn't seem like he really wanted to be here or care about Nebraska. He just, this was kind of a stepping stone to his next job, and it kind of showed in the fabric of our team. And I was like, wow, really? And then he told me something kind of shocking. He was like, if I wanted to, like, sit down and talk with my coach about life or football or anything like that, I had to, like, set up a meeting through his secretary. And even if I did that, I wasn't guaranteed to be able to meet with my coach. And since the day I signed my letter of intent, the coach never said a word to my parents or my family or anything. So I thought that was kind of alarming for what the program was like at that point, as far as, embracing Nebraska's culture and the relationship with the players and stuff. And that's one reason that I don't think there's a reason for concern for the future, because obviously that's not the case right now. That story that he told me, I can promise you Nebraska football is not like that right now. Scott Frost is not going to be running a program like that. So that's one reason where I do have trust in us heading in the right direction eventually. And the reason I believe that, I have another story. If I remember, I'll have a picture pop up. I met Scott. I was lucky enough to meet Scott Frost once at a high school golf tournament. I played golf in high school, and this is, a few years ago. This is like Scott Frost wasn't playing anymore. He was kind of just getting into coaching and finishing up his playing career. And I'm from Wisconsin, so as a kid, I didn't move to Nebraska until almost high school age. So I'm a big sports fan. I knew who Scott Frost was, but I didn't know his face. And I did well in this high school golf tournament. I don't remember if I won or whatever, but I think Scott Frost saw me getting my medal or something, And he walked up and congratulated me. He was like, "Hey, good job, man. Nice round." I had no clue who he was. I was just like, "Hey, thanks, man. Appreciate it." Then my friends are obviously from Nebraska. And they're like, "Do you have any idea who that was?" And I'm like, "No." And they're like, "That was Scott Frost, quarterback for Nebraska, national champion." I'm like, "Wow, okay." So I go running back over to him, and he's on the hole one's tee box at this point. And I'm like, "Hey, man, sorry to bother you. I just didn't recognize you at first. Can I get a picture with you?" And he was like, "Yeah, no problem." Smiles, puts his arm around me. We took a picture. I've since lost that picture, and the only picture I have left is some random picture my mom took while we were like standing there talking. But, you know, the reason I tell that story is you contrast what this Nebraska player told me about playing for Callahan and the type of guy Scott Frost is. You know, to be a big-time national champion NFL athlete, to take the time to walk up to a high schooler and congratulate them, obviously that's not something Bill Callahan would do if he was out at a golf course to play golf. He's not going to walk up to a kid in Nebraska and congratulate him. But that's the type of guy we have at head coach. That's somebody who wants to be here and cares about Nebraska and just the type of person he is. That's the difference we have in the leadership of our program now. And that story that I experienced is why I personally believe in the long-term success of this program, that he is the right guy. Like, we're not going to do better than Scott Frost. Like, there's nobody I would choose over him right now. Even though I'm not high on the short-term 2018 Nebraska football team, for those reasons, I do believe in the future of Nebraska football. And as kind of the last part of this video, I'm going to explain why it's not smart to judge coaches in their first year leading a program. And, you know, you look at how amazing Chip Kelly was at Oregon. He goes to the NFL to coach the Eagles. He's got average at best quarterback play, and he goes 10-6, 10-6. So, I mean, Chip Kelly can coach some football, and he's struggling this year at UCLA to the point where the quarterback's dad is calling him out on Twitter, and everybody's, you know, raging about Chip Kelly. You know, so experiencing something similar to what Nebraska is. Bill Belichick, arguably the best football coach in American history. I said arguably, but obviously an amazing coach. First year with the Patriots, 5-11. Okay? Pete Carroll, we all know the dynasty that he created at USC, and he's a Super Bowl champion as a coach in the NFL. Amazing football coach. Well, what did he do his first year at USC? 6-6. Okay? Dabo Swinney. Look what he's developed at Clemson. It's, you know, one of the premier programs in college football. A top 5 program year in and year out. They are just humming along. Dabo Swinney was 19-15 in his first 3 years as the coach at Clemson. 19-15. And look what Clemson is now. Okay? And then this last example that I'm going to give, Nick Saban, arguably the best college football coach of all time. His first year at Alabama, they go 7-6, and they lose to Louisiana Monroe. Okay, now you're probably saying, well, Louisiana Monroe, maybe they went like 10-2, and they were kind of a powerhouse in their conference. Louisiana Monroe lost to Tulsa, lost to Troy, lost to North Texas, and lost to Middle Tennessee State that year. But they beat Nick Saban's Alabama Crimson Tide. Now, those are all examples of amazing coaches who have gone on to do amazing things, struggling at a program in their first year. So, you know, we need to realize that, yes, 2018 is probably going to be a rough year for Nebraska. Probably 2 or 3 wins. But it is not time to jump ship on Scott Frost and this coaching staff. You know, if we're 0-4 next year, I'm going to be making a different video on, you know, hey, you know, what's going on. But right now, it is not time to jump ship. And I do believe in Scott Frost and his coaching staff to get it turned around. So, yeah, here in a couple days, I will do my preview on Nebraska versus Purdue. So, as always, thank you for watching. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.